You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
Vengeance. I am the knight. I am
Matt Laswitz, and welcome to this week's episode of Bat Chat with Matt and Will, a Batman ranking podcast, where each week my co-hosts Will Nevin and I dig into 3 Batman stories, discuss them, and rank them on the big board, thus creating a giant list of Batman stories from best to worst. Will, what's going on tonight?
Okay, first of all, I am exercising my contractual right to push back my right of reorganization until next week. Next week.
No, we've got guests for multiple weeks in a row, Will. It'll be a couple weeks.
No, it's going to be next week. Bat Chat, Movie Chat. Let's start with the spoilers that I wanted to start with last week, but somebody hadn't seen Fantastic Four yet. I was convinced for that whole last movie that, well, this Earth is doomed. We're going to get the Fantastic Four in a lifeboat to the MCU that we all know and love, but the Jack Kirby Earth survived. I was very surprised by that.
I couldn't think they were going to let them lose in their own movie. I think that's where we're headed. I think there'll be an incursion, and I think they're going to wind up on Earth 616 soon enough. But I can't imagine they were going to, give the Fantastic Four their hurrah and then be like, yeah, guess what? You lose. You lose. I say good day, sir. I said good day.
Well, I mean, they're not going to be able to bring their tech into quote unquote our universe. I mean, what is that? What is that Earth? 828?
828, yeah.
Yeah. The Earth of 828 by 2020, whatever it is in the 616 would be way more advanced.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Faster than light travel, Matt. My God.
Yeah. I think we're going to get some kind of hybridized Crisis on Infinite Earths. Suddenly there's one Earth left, and these characters are all going to be on one Earth kind of deal, with them and the X-Men and all these characters sort of jammed onto one Earth by the end of Secret Wars. But
Smooshed.
we'll see.
What was that? Battle Worlds?
Yeah. That it'll be Battle World, and then it'll be like, oh, and now you've got a regular Earth instead of a freaky battle world, but everybody's stuck on the one planet. As if it's always been that way.
And we'll have a grand recasting.
Okay, but now new movies.
We still got to talk Together because
Yes.
I hadn't seen Together yet. Very interesting film. Very interesting. I thought it's a great companion piece with The Substance. What The Substance has to say about society, I think Together says about relationships. I could have used more practical effects in Together.
I will always take a practical effect over a digital effect. I will never turn down somebody using funky prosthesis versus digital effects. It always looks better.
I thought by the time you got to, oh, this is what the movie is, it lost a little bit of its luster. There was a lot more, I think, tension and drama before it got to the point of, oh, they're being drawn together into Cronenberg's. But I love the ending. I thought that nailed it. That it was such a subversion of expectation. When that door opened, you're like, oh, that's both terrible and makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't want to say anymore because we're still... it'll be a month and change out by then, but this is an ending I don't want to spoil in case there are people who aren't going to get a chance
definitely
to see it on
worth
the big
it.
screen.
But very smart, smart ending. Like again, the third act maybe has some problems, but that ending nailed it. I'm gonna talk for 45 minutes about the next movie, but
I stand corrected.
Did you see anything else?
Oh yeah, saw it last night. No, I saw Naked Gun last night.
Oh my God. A totally different pace and vibe and feel than the original movies. I think the original movies, the Abrams Zuckers, were very content to just kind of unfold at their own pace. This is a torrent of jokes, just a fire hose of jokes.
The JPM, the jokes per minute in this thing was through the roof. The joke density
Oh,
was insane.
dense is a very good way to describe the movie because I was talking on Twitter with somebody, comparing this to the improv style of, Adam McKay, Will Ferrell, like, oh, we'll just do a bunch of different takes and just see what happens. This requires so much more writing and work on the front end than that because the way that everything is just so packed together. I knew we were in for a very different kind of movie once the coffee gag like really took off. This is not something that they did in the original trilogy. And to be clear, like the original trilogy had a lot of bits that were just carried over from the television series. Like the interrogation bit, that was straight from the show. This was not afraid to do its own thing. And God bless him for that.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really solid. The great thing about that many jokes is even if one doesn't land for you, there's another one less than a minute away that is going to land for you.
Oh yeah.
Because they just keep coming.
Unrelenting.
The snowman sequence, I was in tears. I was in tears through that.
What do you think was my favorite part?
I don't know. You got to tell. I'm
Oh, come on. You know me better than that.
well, I'm trying to think of any. No, I really. It's hard to judge.
Okay. All right. So the chili dog sequence was good.
Okay.
But because of the farts, right? But the thing that took it the next level was just the self-loathing. I had 5 more chili dogs that day.
There were a couple of bits I wish hadn't been in the trailer.
Oh, there was one O.J. Simpson joke, and it's in the trailer.
Yeah, that should have been held back because
Yeah.
that would have killed the entire audience if they had held back.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I was reading an interview with Akiva Schaffer, and he said like, look, O.J. Simpson was a bad dude. He did bad things. Like we had to balance that with it being a comedy. So I absolutely respect there just being the one O.J. Simpson joke. You had to acknowledge it somehow. But yeah, sometimes you lose the battle against the suits about what should be in the trailer and what should not be in the trailer.
I'm glad they didn't spoil Weird Al. I'm glad that was a surprise.
And that was another great thing. Comparing Happy Gilmore 2 to Naked Gun. Like Happy Gilmore will not let you rest for a single second without poking you in the ribs and beating you over the head with something that happened in the first movie. Like, oh, here's the clip from the first movie if you forgot about it. But Naked Gun, like, there's a beaver in the background. Weird Al has those couple of cameos just because he was in the first one and it was always funny. It's a very smart film in what it chooses to acknowledge and pay homage to, and it was an absolute hoot.
Man, I am glad for the Pamela Anderson renaissance.
I would have liked to have had a little more time with her character. And in deleted scenes, either from the script or from the actual finished product, I hope there's a reading in there somewhere. There has to be.
Yeah. Between this and The Last Showgirl, and I gotta think that she was the one who talked to Bautista, since they had such incredible chemistry in Last Showgirl.
I need to see Last Showgirl because I had no idea Batista was in that.
Yeah. Oh, it is the most serious, dramatic role Batista has ever done.
Whoa, now you're selling me on it.
He's the stage manager of the show, and he and her have known each other for years, and they have a relationship that there's all kinds of stuff going on that you have to sort of see through the movie. I don't want to talk too much about it, but they both deserved more awards cred than either of them got for that movie. And that's not even adding in Jamie Lee Curtis, who is phenomenal in it as well.
Had the misfortune of being in the same award season with The Substance, I think.
Yeah.
So this week, we got Weapons.
Oh, yeah.
Next week, clearly, Nobody 2. No hard choice about what to see next week. But I'm like 75% weapons and then 25% just going to see Naked Gun again. For the third time.
No, I've
You
got
don't
I've
want
got
to
my
see Ice Cube's War of the World?
Oh yeah, that's the next few weeks is a lot of movies coming out, and a lot of them are weird and indie. That is gonna be something. Because yeah, I've got my tickets for Weapons already, and I'm trying to figure out something else. And next week will be Nobody 2, and just that because I've got Flame Connell next weekend. So it'll be Nobody 2 on Friday. And week after that, Honey Don't, new Cohen. But hey, we've got a guest. Hey, John, welcome back. Friend of the show, John Wickham. How you doing, bud?
Hey.
So, sorry about three Jokers, everyone.
You know, this week is a much more bearable week.
Markedly better.
Considerably so. And we needed to do it eventually, so it's now off the table.
Don't worry, everyone. There are worse stories out there that could take the bottom.
And I never want to go near any of them. Yes, I know Master Race exists.
If you want to hear of a Master Race discussion, go on to Patreon right now and pledge $10 a month. And you
Yep.
can get Matt very sad as he reads Master Race.
Yeah.
Or Strikes Again. We're all star.
If memory serves, at least because Strikes Again is so widescreen, it reads faster. Master Race is bad and plodding. But we're not reading any of that horror tonight.
What are we doing tonight, Matt?
Oh, tonight, John wanted to talk about Mr. Freeze stories from a strangely busy time in that character's publication history. There's a period between 2004 and 2006.
2003, with the start of Gotham Central
Yeah.
to about the end of Infinite Crisis.
Yeah, where there's a lot of Mr. Freeze. I mean, we've got the stories we're covering tonight, plus we've already covered Gotham Central, Under the Red Hood, City of Crime. There's another Legends of the Dark Knight arc in there, and that's not
Cold
even
Case. Cold Case.
Cold Case. Yep, we've already covered that. There are I think some animated series stuff in there too. Like
There's the Batman.
oh yeah, he's all over the Batman.
The Batman Strikes.
Yes, right. The comic, which was the Batman Strikes. Yeah, and I remember during this period, during the run up to Infinite Crisis, I was at what was then Wizard World Philly, or whatever they called it. I think it was still Wizard. It was Wizard World Philly back then, and there was a Batman panel. I asked, "You've got a lot of Mister Freeze stories. Is this all building to something?" And they evaded. And as the answer to it was no. No, we're just having a lot of Mr. Freeze stories. After this, he will mostly disappear until the New 52. Like for 5 years, there'll be like a smattering, a small handful of Mr. Freeze stories.
There's a Freeze one-shot tying Joker's Asylum. He's in a World's Finest miniseries. He's in a two-parter Firestorm.
Oh yeah. I'm sure he's in there's shots of Arkham and you'll see him there, but he stops being a focal point, which is a weird thing to do after the first story that we're going to discuss tonight. The first story of the night is Destruction's Daughter. This is Batgirl Volume 1, numbers 66 to 73. The writer is Anderson Gabrich, with pencils by Andy Kuhn, Ale Garza, Pop Mon, and Francisco Rodriguez de la Fuente. Inks by Kuhn, Jesse Delberdong, Mon, Dan Davis, Rodney Ramos, and Adam DeCrocker. Colors by Wildstorm FX and Jason Wright. Letters by Jared K. Fletcher, Pat Brousseau, Nick J. Napolitano, and Rob Lee. And edited by Michael Wright. The cover dates are September of 2005 to April of 2006. Cassandra Cain is on a quest to find out the truth about her parentage. Is she the daughter of Lady Shiva? She will encounter many heroes and villains on her globe-trotting quest before facing Shiva herself. Bronze Tiger, the Birds of Prey, the League of Assassins and their new master, Nisa Al Ghul, and Mr. Freeze.
So this being a Freeze episode, I want to start with kind of the lens of Freeze in this story. And there's certainly a lot to unpack because this is like 17 issues. I feel like the idea here was how do we get Nora Freeze into a Lazarus pit? What story do we have to cobble together to get her into a pit? And then I think we just worked backward from that point.
I think that's one of the things. Well, would you believe that this is the last arc of the Batgirl Volume 1?
That does not surprise me at all.
I think, yes, that was a thing that they wanted to put Nora in a Lazarus pit. I think that they put it in this story because they already had the idea of Batgirl needs to fight Shiva again.
I think that was all there. I think they also had some idea of where they wanted to take Cassandra post 1 year later. And so they needed to start laying the groundwork of her breaking bad. Because that is where we go. The next time we see Cassandra, she has taken over the League of Assassins because she has killed Nyssa.
That's a bad call.
Yet Nyssa is blown up in a car bomb, and it turns out Cassandra was behind it and is now the leader of the League of Assassins. Which, to eventually clean up, they're like, Deathstroke gave her a kooky serum that made her kind of evil and follow his directions. So it was really Deathstroke behind the whole thing. That whole thing is a mess, but none of that is what we're dealing with tonight.
Writers will make all kind of bad choices and then just expect somebody else to come along later and clean it up.
This is editorial, baby. I don't blame Gabrich for this.
A lot of this comes down from Didio because
I don't blame the person who's responsible, Adam Beachman, for this story because he was given marching orders. He's admitted that.
Yep. This was all part of Dan Didio's crusade against sidekicks. That guy did not meet a sidekick he did not wish was dead.
No, I believe that this was part of his long-term plan to get Barbara Gordon into the Batgirl costume again.
Yeah, oh yeah. He and a certain Marvel editor who will remain nameless, they liked the comics that they remember from when they were kids and want to revert to that mean. And hey, Didio was not the only one at DC who was guilty of that. I mean, how else do we get back Hal Jordan and Barry Allen, except for Jeff Johns liking those characters too? But this story, this is technically 2 arcs, but those last 3 issues don't work unless you've read the stuff running up to it. They would be impenetrable without knowing all of the stuff that led up to Cassandra having a 3-issue fight scene in the woods.
Let's break down this arc from the very beginning. The very first issue, number 66, is bad.
Yeah.
It's the worst issue of the story.
Because we get a brand new Pigman character, Viraco, who appears for 1 issue and is then taken away by an OMAC, never to be seen again.
Infinite Crisis tie-in stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yep. We got OMACs. We get the Society.
This is very under the Red Hood pilled.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The whole DC universe has to tie into this thing that is going on. And it's funny that some of the stuff that is here is stuff that Tate Bromble, who's writing the current Batgirl ongoing, has actually incorporated. Because he brought in it was David Kane who killed Carolyn Wusan, which was never referenced again after this until Bromble tried to do the unified theory of Lady Shiva and bring in all of the different versions of Shiva's origin in not the current, but the previous arc of the current Batgirl series and try to tie it all together into one story. But we go from that mess into the issue with the Birds of Prey. Well, Bronze Tiger and then the Birds of Prey.
Yes. There's good moments in that issue. Cassandra making up with Barbara, the spar between Cass and Black Canary. That's some good stuff, and the art's improved from the first issue.
Yeah. There's a moment where Cassandra is talking to Bronze Tiger, and he's ashamed of taking part in her training and creation. And in the end, we made you a warrior. You made yourself a hero, which is the theme of this story and winds up ending on a very different note than last week's League of Shadows, which also does similar beats with Cassandra wrestling with nature versus nurture. Or, I guess, in this case, the nature being what Kane did to her, and the nurture being Bruce putting out a hand and trying to teach her and help her believe there's a different way.
It also has Black Canary screaming at it, using her canary cry on a mountain, so Cass can land safely out of the plane.
On a motorcycle.
Yes.
Once we get past that, now we're at the League of Assassins stuff, and that's the next three issues. This is where we get Shiva. This is where we get Freeze.
This is where we get Alpha and Nissa Al Ghul.
The only second appearance of Nissa Al Ghul. This is the first time she comes back after Death in the Maidens. And then she dies in her next appearance after this. All that work that Greg Rucka did to create and introduce and give this character gravitas, they kill her after 3 appearances.
And then she pops up on Arrow as Sarah Lance's lesbian fling.
And now she's back in Batgirl. Because let's be fair, she was blown up in a car. She's a freaking Al Ghul. I'm shocked that it took 15-ish years for her to come back.
20.
God, you're right. It was 20.
Look, sometimes you blow somebody up in a car. Sometimes you put them on a meat hook. They're not really dead.
The meat hook thing was very deliberately, well, if Mother Nature decides, you know what? Lady Shiva needs to go dip in the Lazarus pit, that's fine. I win. If she doesn't, well, then, you know what? That's fine, too. She's happy with her result.
If Gail Simone wants to include her in Birds of Prey, and 1 year later, okay, she'll fall into the pit and be in Birds of Prey in the next arc. There we go. But it's, of course, during this section, during this League of Assassins section, where we get Freeze. This would be Freeze after his appearance in Under the Hood, because he was there at the beginning of Under the Hood and then disappears. So one would assume he left Black Mask's employ to be taken by Nissa to create...
Nissa and the Secret Society.
Yes, Nissa and the Society.
Black Mask probably gave Freeze over the Society. That's...
Right, he joins the Society, so he got Captain Nazi and Hyena, and he gave them Freeze. The Society wound up getting the better part of that deal. They have Nora, and so here we get all the stuff with Nissa has to recalibrate the Lazarus Pit to allow her to properly resurrect Nora. And when they don't, and Cass is like, she's stringing you along, let's just dip her in the pit, because either it'll work or it won't. She comes out as Lazara, the living Lazarus Pit.
Lazara!
Who never appears again.
Why would she? It was a bad idea.
Eventually, Peter Tomasi will resurrect her as Mrs. Freeze in Rebirth. But Lazara, the living Lazarus Pit, does not ever return beyond this story.
Because of Mr. Freeze is ice. He needs a lady that's fire.
Yeah, it was a choice.
A very bad one.
Yes.
So we get a cast and the crew of assassins, some of which are established.
Alpha and Shrike.
Some of Shiva's gang from a previous series was there.
Yeah. With the exception of Alpha and Shrike, they're all either Shiva-related characters. None of them have more than 10 appearances anywhere except for Shiva and Shrike.
Alpha probably breaks the 10-issue line, but only just barely.
Yeah, I mean, he was a recurring Batgirl character, as we could see. He and Cass had a relationship here, but these were not characters that anybody was going to miss. They might as well all have been wearing red shirts, because you knew most of them weren't making it out of this thing alive. After talking about Shiva last week, it is fascinating. Everyone seems to have slightly different versions of Shiva. There is not a platonic ideal of Lady Shiva because her personality changes drastically based on what she needs to be in the story. Is she Denny O'Neill's noble warrior assassin? Is she Chuck Dixon's competitive, wants to be the very best?
No one ever was.
Yep. Is she Gail Simone's version, who is more human and has more depth? Is she the broken, almost Ra's al Ghul in her beliefs version that Tynion has in League of Shadows? Here, she seems to be some sort of hodgepodge of some of the traditional O'Neill, Dixon, fighter, champion with some of the stuff that Simone was doing in her wanting a legacy, but there's a coldness and a personality of violence that we don't see in some of the other versions. She is so cold and cruel towards Cassandra. And that probably has something to do with the death wish that we're seeing here.
It's part death wish, it's part Shiva doesn't want Cass to be like her 100%.
We definitely get that at the end when she is taking Cassandra back to the Lazarus pit. And she has the line, "Heroes are forever, the rest of us are just part of the story."
Just to remind people, this is the story that makes Shiva Cass's mom. Not sure if we mentioned that yet, but this is the story that does that.
Yeah, canonically before this, that was a fairly common fan theory, but it was not canon until this story. And we once again run into a fairly classic comic book problem where a ghost of a character who's supposed to be dead is there when the character is in fact not dead. Because her talking to Stephanie Brown's spirit on the other side,
her soulmate.
Yep, and Steph is very much alive in Africa with Leslie Tompkins, but that is something that won't be established for another few years.
Well, if you believe a person is dead, then, you're going to be talking to them in the afterlife, I suppose.
Okay, but how does that explain the fact that she knows Bloodhaven was nuked?
Again, another Infinite Crisis moment, because the whole DC universe has to be referenced everywhere.
I mean, to be fair, Cass was working out of Bloodhaven at the start of this book because War Games bullshit. The best way to describe it, War Games bullshit, and she loses her supporting cast in that explosion.
Yep, her and Tim over in Bloodhaven.
I mean, Tim's supporting cast of soldiers that want him to join the army?
Oh, God.
Still around? Question mark?
Oh, that was... Oh, Bill Willingham, why? Why? I have a bigger picture question about this and about some of the stuff with Cassandra. Because there is this recurring thing in her narration where she keeps stumbling over words and trying to find the proper words. I don't know how I feel about that. It seems very ham-fisted to me. I prefer a Cassandra whose narration is terse. And this feels like it's really trying to have your cake and eat it too. We're going to point out how limited her vocabulary is, but we're also going to be able to give her bigger, longer swaths of narration because we're having her stumble over it.
This is a very chatty Cass.
Very much so. This is not a terrible story, but it is remarkably busy.
It has so many characters.
So many characters, most of whom don't do much.
Alba gets a moment of, hey, I won't be a killer because you inspired me in that second to last issue, which, good moment.
Yeah, it's a good moment. But most of those other characters are there just to get killed.
Yeah, this is a Mr. Freeze episode. Mr. Freeze's stuff in the story makes the whole thing worse.
Again, it is, I think as Will said, it feels like we had this idea of wanting to bring Nora Freeze back and get her into a Lazarus pit. Oh, you're doing stuff with the League of Assassins and Nissa Al Ghul and all that? Well, you have to be part of the DC universe, so here, you're going to be the place where Mr. Freeze brings his wife back from the dead. And so much of it also felt like this was setting up stuff that never pays off. That never pays off. Lady Shiva and Cass don't meet again until League of Shadows a decade later.
The ending moment of Cass putting Lady Shiva on the hook as a final note, and the hook just dangles above the Lazarus pit. That's a metal moment. It's the high point of the book, and just wish that the whole book was like that. We haven't even talked about Wild Dog.
Oh, yeah. Mad Dog.
Mad Dog, Wild Dogs. Wild Dog's a much better character.
Yes. Yeah, Mad Dog, Cassandra's pseudo brother, the prototype, David Kane's first experiment. There's meat on that for real introspection and for Cassandra to try to deal with this and what he means to her, but there isn't time. You don't realize who he is until 2 issues from the end of the series. And then it doesn't get to go anywhere.
Because DC made a very dumb decision.
Yeah. I mean, it took forever to get Cass back to the place where she was before this. But I'm glad we've gotten there. The stuff Tynion did with her, the stuff we're getting now in the Bromble book and in Birds of Prey. This is great Cassandra. And I'm glad we're back, but it took forever to dig this character out of the hole that she was put in by editorial fiat here and in the next couple of years.
And it does a convincing job of at least making a Castiel turn feel interesting and like it could happen. Not in the way it does, but like it could happen.
Right.
She's not the type of villain who would use a car bomb.
Yeah.
But like, you can see that, like, well, maybe Cass would break off from the Bat family because of this story, and make herself a leader of some sort of gang like that, being more brutal.
Machiavellian mastermind is not the impression I get from this. Anything else?
That means it's time to Batgirl 66 to 73, Destruction's Daughter on the big board.
We've got 603 stories on the big board.
God damn.
Finger stabs.
Number 1 is Post-Crisis Origin of Batman. Batman Year 1.
Coming in a sexy 69, it's Batman Annual number 14, Eye of the Beholder.
At 200 is Batman 66 meets the Green Hornet. At 400 is Superman, The Wedding Album.
Coming in real high, not nearly as close to the bottom as it once was, and something that probably makes Matt a little angry. It's Batman 667 to 669, Club of Heroes at 420.
One of my top contenders for the next re-ranking. And all the way down at the bottom at 603, it's 3 Jokers.
What a dog turd.
I'm going to throw out a story.
Okay.
Better or worse than Under the Red Hood, a story that's very similar.
I can't put it above Under the Red Hood. Under the Red Hood, for sheer historical weight, the return of Jason Todd is much more important. And there are more high points in Under the Red Hood than there are here.
So I was thinking, what's 500 right now? And 500 right now is the Grim Knight. I would say this beats that, but I don't know by how much.
This is in the 400s, just the sheer volume. If this could have been trimmed down, granted it wouldn't have worked for this episode, but the Mr. Freeze stuff didn't need to be here. If this was really about Cass and Shiva and even throwing in Nyssa as sort of this manipulative force playing them against each other, this would have been a much better story. But there's too much going on, too much infinite crisis.
Better than Face to Face.
I got a soft spot for Face to Face, but we're definitely in the right range because that's also about the same number of issues. I think that beats it just because, as messy as that was, it's one story. It does its thing, but I think we're real near there. I might put this above 491 Enemies Among Us, that Mark Verheiden Superman Batman story where all the aliens are being possessed, because that was a bit of a slog. This at least moves at a clip.
In my opinion, this is better than Time to Monkey Shine, the Jackanapes Joker story from Villains Month.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
But that's Jackanapes, though.
Yeah, but this story has Cass putting Shiva on a hook over the Lazarus pit.
Cass is always doing something to Shiva.
Or vice versa. Time to Monkey Shine, the only benefit there is there's only one issue, but it has that whole thing with Joker and his crazy memories of his abusive aunt, and you know me, I don't like anything that does Joker origin stuff.
No. We want to say 490 then?
Yeah, new 490. You know, John, you got a night where I don't think anything is going to wind up in the bottom 100. You might have broken your streak. Our second story of the night is Fire and Ice. This is Batman Gotham Knights number 59. The writer is Robbie Morrison, with art by Charlie Adlard, pencils by Brad Anderson, letters by Clem Robbins, and edited by Matt Idelson and Nachi Castro. The cover date is January of 2005. Batman and Mr. Freeze sit in an ice dome as a building burns around them. There, they talk about how they got to this point, both in this particular moment and in their long rivalry.
Matt, how about you tell the good people what the Gotham Knights series was, what kind of hole it filled in the publishing line, and when it basically petered out?
So Gotham Knights launched out of no man's land. It was the book that took Shadow of the Bat's place. It started out, its first creative thrust
2-3 years
was Devin Grayson, and it was the Batman family title. Batman was the Batman as sort of superhero title from Ed Brubaker. Detective was the detective book from Greg Rucka. And this was Batman and his family. Most issues were Batman with Batgirl, with Nightwing, with Huntress. Grayson left and Scott Beatty takes over. And Beatty does a whole arc with Bane, the seeking redemption Bane, that kind of runs through the remainder of his run and deals with Bane's quest not just for redemption, but to find the identity of his father. It pays off some of the stuff from Vengeance of Bane too. That ends at 49. And then 50 is when A.J. Lieberman takes over, and the last 2 years of this book is basically a giant sequel to Hush.
Yeesh.
It is bad. We've done the first arc of that, Pushback, and didn't we do one of those with you, John? The Villains United issue?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one where Hush somehow beats Talia al Ghul.
Yeah. This is just a fill-in issue. This absolutely feels like a story that was sitting in a filing cabinet somewhere, and they needed to just slot it in. It could have gone in any Bat book, and you just kind of dropped it into place. This felt to me like somebody trying to vibe on Batman the Animated Series. It feels like a sort of mid-tier Batman the Animated Series standalone episode where you have a little story. There's not a lot of not a lot of depth. There's not a lot going on.
There's a lot of death. I'll give it that.
Oh yeah. Freeze killing a lot of people in this story. Robbie Morrison is not a terribly prolific author in American comics. He has written a ton and a half of British comics. He has written for 2000 AD. He's done a ton of Dread, Nikolai Dante, a lot of stuff in the Dread verse. But his American work is really this, some Wildcats, some Authority, and one issue of Spider-Man's Tangled Web and a strip in Dark Horse Presents. This is the only Batman he has ever done, and is also, as far as I can remember, other than maybe a black and white short, the only Batman story from Charlie Adlard, who at this point is best known as the artist on The Walking Dead for everything but its first arc. And he did a Scarface one shot too. Yes, I'd forgotten about that. He does it with Alan Grant, which makes sense because Adlard is a British artist, and Grant, as you regularly point out from his language, is most assuredly from the United Kingdom. Will.
Fake
Grant,
American, goddammit.
also Grant doing a ventriloquist story. Very shocking. Very shocking.
Oh yeah, never would have expected that. And
It's a very well drawn story.
Yeah,
It's the best art of the night by far.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
we'll get there because we'll talk about Seth Fisher. I've got feelings about Seth Fisher, but I do agree this is a really good looking piece. I've had a soft spot for Adlard. Adlard did the first 16 issues of the original X-Files tie-in comic through Topps Comics when Topps, the trading card company, briefly tried to get into the comic market during the comic boom and got a bunch of licenses, including X-Files, Mars Attacks, and Bram Stoker's Dracula. So actually really good material in there. It's a very...
middling.
Yeah. It's not bad. It's not memorable. It is firmly in Trifle Town. It's just a story like, okay, Batman and Freeze are conversing. We get flashbacks to how they got to this point where they're trapped in the ice dome. There's some conversation about how Freeze feels about Batman, how Batman feels about Freeze, how Batman thinks Nora would respond to Freeze being the way he is. And then they wind up breaking out of the ice dome and Batman wins the day.
With a pretty good one-liner. I believe it was Freeze, I'm just going to enjoy this nice summer day.
Yes. After Freeze has been complaining about how he hates the summer.
I do too. I'm on Freeze's side, minus the many murders he does.
Yeah, you and me both. Not a fan. It is a stereotypical Mr. Freeze story. If you needed to just go to someone, oh, what is a Mr. Freeze story? Mr. Freeze freezes a bunch of people and Batman stops him.
I believe this issue is in the Mr. Freeze Batman Arkham collection of Mr. Freeze stories.
I believe it is, along with not Snow, but the arc of Legends of the Dark Knight. Before that, the two issues, which are also a Mr. Freeze story. It's also strange that Freeze addresses Batman as detective. Dude, don't steal Raish's bit.
That's gimmick infringement, man. I thought this was a perfectly fine, solid standalone story.
Yeah.
Not particularly ambitious, as you've suggested, but absolutely did its job. I liked the structure, right? It didn't play with time and events so much as to be distracting or confusing. It was just a refreshing little approach to what was otherwise a trite story.
Yeah, this is the kind of story that is going to fall right in the middle of the list with a bunch of other things that are like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that. That was fine. The art is good. I like the moments towards the end as the ice dome starts to collapse and Batman and Freeze have to work together to break their way out. There's a little...
Your helmet's fogging up.
Yes. Again, there's some good one-liners in here in general. And I like the symmetry that at the beginning it's Bruce who's waiting for Freeze to talk and he breaks. And in the end, it's the opposite. It's Freeze who gets frustrated because Batman's the one who's not talking. Structurally, Morrison is one of those writers who a lot of other British writers who I've read, like, oh, I love the work of Robbie Morrison, but since most of his stuff is not as easily available here in the States without tracking.
Yo ho ho!
Yep, that's you gotta find them like you do. It's a shame. I really wish there was better collecting of 2000 AD material here in the States. DC did it for a little while. Those are some really nice collections. And I mean, Dread gets collected. Like you can get these big collections of Dread, but a lot of the other stuff is not as easily available here in the States, and I really wish it was. Because I would read a lot more of that 2000 AD stuff if it were readily available.
I like the image of, well, Mr. Freeze does a freeze bomb and freezes a bunch of people in Gotham's Park, and you just get to see the corpses of the victims just rumble. And that's a really good image by the artist.
Freeze calls it an icicle bomb, and Bruce makes some comment, and Freeze pointing out, like, oh, I'm sorry, from the man who has batarangs and batmobiles. This is probably the least disturbed Mr. Freeze of the night. We've got a very haunted by his obligation to Nora and Batgirl, and we'll talk about just how disturbed Freeze is in our final story in a minute.
Yeah, this is the most homicidal version of Freeze, which, you know what? That makes sense. He willing to cut a guy.
Oh yeah, is he ever? Oh, he's willing to freeze a guy and then break him into itty bitty pieces.
And this is a Mr. Freeze who's angry at Batman for Nora's death because Nora broke in a fight between the two of them.
Using that version of the origin from the Mr. Freeze one shot. And it's also a Freeze that has something in common with the later animated series Freeze, the personality-wise head in the jar Freeze, not that he's head in the jar Freeze, that he can't have the things that bring him joy, so part of his motivation is making sure that no one else is happy, which is another reason why it felt to me like an animated series play, a pastiche. Like, if it were a little less violent, and obviously with different art, this could have worked in Gotham Adventures.
Yeah.
Very easily. Wouldn't take a lot to move it out of Earth Prime and into whatever the animated series Earth, which I don't think has ever really had a number. But I'm surprised by that. I really would. Earth 92. I'm going to call it Earth 92 since that was when
I think it does actually have a number, but I'm not sure what it is because of Batman Beyond stuff and Justice League.
Right, the Beyond Earth does, so this would probably share that number, wouldn't it? But yeah.
This has the Hills, which is Gotham's third most notable neighborhood.
And the Hill, which celebrates its 20th anniversary this month, I believe, as we're recording. The 25th anniversary of the introduction of the Hill is this month. So yeah, I was reading.
You guys should do a Hill episode at some point.
Yeah, I think because I'd like to read that the Priest Martinborough one shot again. But yeah, because there are plenty of stories set on do that and then do Red Hood, the Hill, and then the Narrows has sort of taken some of the Hill's shtick, but I would definitely like to do that. Yeah.
And Orpheus.
Oh yeah, Orpheus, definitely. Anybody have anything else?
We're at the point where we're just making up episodes for later on, so I think we're good.
Yeah.
Oh, that means it's time to Gotham Knights number 59, Fire and Ice on the big board!
Okay, so as I was saying, I'm thinking somewhere in the 300s, which is where a lot of these are perfectly good stories wind up.
All right.
Are you sure about that? Because Because do you think this is better than Luther, You're Driving Me Sane?
Mm, what are we thinking, Will?
Well, I was just gonna say I would have a hard time putting this above something like 373 Doggone Crisis, or certainly Joker's Boner at 382.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so maybe it is the upper parts of the 400s. Because I think you're right. I think John is right. I think Luther, You're Driving Me Sane probably does go above this, but not by much. 430, Batman of All Nations. Above or below that, first appearance of the Club of Heroes.
That's better. That is better art than this.
This is the Golden Age Club of Heroes. So this isn't the
Oh,
Williams. This is the first appearance back in the Golden Age of the Club of Heroes.
okay.
That's 430, 420. Yeah, oh, but that one definitely does have better art. Yeah, the Williams one.
I got a number for you.
Okay.
Right above one of your favorites. I say the new 434.
Okay, right above Deathstroke, right below Werewolf. Sounds good. And our final story of the night is Snow. This is Batman Legends of the Dark Knight, numbers 192 to 196. The writers are Dan Curtis Johnson and J.H. Williams III, with art by Seth Fisher, colors by Dave Stewart, letters by Phil Balsman, and edited by Joey Cavalieri, Harvey Richards, Andrew Helfer, and Rachel Gluckstern. The cover dates are August to December of 2005. Early in his career, Batman makes his first stab at creating a team of allies, in this case, employing a group to serve as a support staff. But the team is not prepared with their encounter with a new menace to Gotham, Mr. Freeze.
This is like four stories happening at once that have nothing to do with one another. I think I like three of them, and I really don't care for the fourth. So this is going to be hard.
Okay. Let's get the basics established. What year is this in Batman's continuity?
They say he's been Batman for a year and a half.
Year two story, which it has that vibe. Harvey Dent's not Two-Face yet.
Right. So we're in between. Probably Batman has encountered his first rogues. Joker has already probably been around, maybe Riddler, but we are pre Two-Face. We are well before Robin, despite the end, which granted is not setting up the Graysons being in Gotham, but there's a little wink and a nod at the Flying Graysons at the very end.
I'm gonna be honest. When I selected this story, I was like, this has J.H. Williams art in it, because his name was on the cover, not realizing,
Oh no,
no,
no.
no, he's a writer on this one.
This is Williams working with his co-writer, co-creator from his first book at DC. They were the team behind the late lamented Chase. They co-plotted that with Williams on art and Johnson on scripts. We will eventually cover the Batman arc of Chase in an upcoming, yet to be scheduled Patreon request for a Mr. Bones centric episode.
You can see his bones because his skin's actually clearly cyanide.
So yes, the art here is by Seth Fisher, who passed away very young. Fisher was in his 30s when he was in an accident and died. He did a very small handful of DC work, of work in general. He did this, he did a Flash one-shot, a Green Lantern graphic novel, and a bunch of Vertigo miniseries and shorts. And that's about it. His style is idiosyncratic. It is very not of the mainstream. It is very indie art with sound effects that are built into the art, with a moment of a frustrated Jim Gordon honestly having like smoke coming out of his ears. But there's a texture to his art that I've always found fascinating in what little of his work exists.
This reminded me a lot of Jeff Darrow in that there's always some detail, some intricate visual thing to just sit and just ponder over. In the factory where Freeze sets up or in his lab, there are pipes and gizmos and gadgets, and even on like the Gotham street scenes, there's details, there's just so much life, and this was a very fun book to look at. And you're right, there are some more cartoony moments, but as somebody who generally prefers house style and who is a very cranky man, I love this. Visually, I thought this was splendiferous.
Oh yeah, the cartooniness was not a intended as a criticism. It was
No, no,
intended
no, of course
as
not.
a descriptor because I love Darrow is a great comparison. There's also an artist, Langdon Foss, who is I can't remember if they were friends or studio mates, but he and Fisher did the first 2 pages and the roughs of a short by Joe Hill. And Foss was the one who finished it out after Fisher's passing. I thought his design for Freeze's visions of Nora, that
Oh,
fairy princess costume that Nora is in, was stunning to look at.
and just the complete shift in approach to coloring, how those visions are all softer and pastel, just nailed the delusion so well.
Dave Stewart. I mean, this is a guy who probably can just look up at his shelf of a dozen coloring Eisners. Stewart is one of the all-time great colorists.
20-year run, top of the industry. Amazing.
I do have a little bit of a problem with the Batman because it looks really old for a year two Batman.
Yeah, he does look kind of run down there. There's some Frank Miller, some not that he looks like Miller's Batman, but there is more of a Dark Knight Returns-y Batman in some of those places when he's exhausted. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. So 4 stories, you said, Will. So there's the Mr. Freeze origin.
Yes.
There's Batman gathering this team of, I don't know, losers isn't the right word because they're not.
No,
well, some of them are.
Malcontents, disaffected people.
I was going to say squads of rogues.
There are multiple of them would definitely fit that quality.
Yeah, this is a crew you'd assemble for a heist.
Yes. I mean, we get an issue that the first half of the issue is Batman getting the crew together.
And I'm not sure how do you guys feel about getting the crew together stories?
I love
because
it.
You need a crew. You always need a crew.
Leverage is one of the television series I have watched the most. I'm not quite just started again when I get to the end, as Will is with some things, but I have watched every episode of Leverage many times. So those are 2. Batman and Jim Gordon having a falling out. Is that story?
That's 3.
One of the 3.
And that might be it. We might be tapped out at 3.
Are you sure? What about Batman trying to learn that, he needs to take a break?
Nah.
That's thematic more than plot.
So Freeze, this is a great take on Freeze. Love it. No complaints, no notes. The design for Freeze, we just talked about the Norris stuff. It's spectacular. Some of the notes with Batman and Gordon are a little off. They just get so, I don't know, so combative, and I could certainly see Gordon taking umbrage with like, "Hey, get me this thing. I want this thing. Get me this thing. I'm not your errand boy. You go get it. Leave me alone." So I get that kind of tension. I think this story takes it a little too far. I am not sold on the idea that Batman would put together a team of what amounts to civilians to help him out in the field. I don't think he would trust that many people to bring into his inner circle. I mean, we see people like Leslie, we see people like Alfred, the rest of the family. They are gradually drawn in. Like, he doesn't just automatically bring people into the fold unless the story he is in at the moment requires him to do so. it just felt like not a Batman story. I thought this was a perfectly good, some other spy master bringing, this team together to help fight crime. Perfectly good. But that just didn't feel like a Bat story to me.
It's Doc Savage.
I was going to say it was more Mission Impossible, the TV show, the 60s and 70s, where Batman's like, what do I need for this mission? I need a thief, a profiler, a tech guy, an analyst, and an ex-soldier for some extra muscle.
In my notes, I addressed them as Green Beret, forensics, surveillance, shrink, and ex-con.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think an argument can be made that a year one-ish Batman could try this, but that this is him learning the lesson. I do think that a Batman who is further developed definitely wouldn't. Batman has a center of gravity that when people start getting involved, they are drawn in, as you said, Will. I think that is what brings Leslie and Alfred and various members of the family into his orbit. A singularity, a sun or a black hole that things circle. But here, he is trying something.
You gotta remember, this story supposes that Mr. Freeze is the first super, as in super powerful villain that Batman has to face. And whereas a crew like that might be able to handle a gang who's getting weapons, which is what he assembles them for, they're not equipped to deal with Mr. Freeze.
No. And I'm less bothered by Batman gathering the crew and more bothered by the fact that he didn't vet the Green Beret better than he did. That guy from jump is a ticking time bomb. And I don't see Bruce letting him loose in the way he is. I understand Bruce's reasoning is this is a guy who needs a purpose. I can give him that purpose. But he's still a loose cannon. And it also feels like if he had made this mistake in year one, he would not make the exact same mistake with Jason Todd a few years later. Because it is the exact same mistake. That you're sure that you can get this person with anger and violence issues to toe the line and walk the straight and narrow, and it got this dude killed.
And it's strange in a story that has 5 issues of space that we don't get more of some foreshadowing, more evolution of this guy's character. No, he just goes off after Freeze.
I mean, Freeze did kill many people before this.
Yes. And because of how busy the story is with the parallel narratives, if this was a story just about the team, you could have spent that time, but the time that would have been spent building those characters has to be spent building Freeze, building this iteration of Freeze, who is way more delusional than any other version of Freeze.
Minus the new 52. Plus or minus the new 52.
Yes, okay.
Solid point.
Delusional in a slightly different way. But that version is quite possibly as delusional.
This is a Mr. Freeze who accidentally kills Nora because he brings her to the freezing machine thinking it will preserve her life, but instead kills her, and that breaks him.
And the machine had been altered by his bosses to turn it into a weapon.
Which they were going to sell to the gang that Batman spent this entire story thinking, well, this is a threat. I need to stop it. And he's demanding of Jim to get information and also Harvey Dent for one issue. And that's when they say, we got to take our time with this. That's what inspires Batman to assemble the crew in the first place. Because he needs allies.
And Bruce is early enough here that he's, I guess, not learned the patience that he will. I wish there'd been more than one panel of Matches Malone. There's just one panel of matches.
Just one.
It's like, oh, I wanted more Seth Fisher Matches Malone.
Jim Gordon's also pissed off at Bruce because he almost got an instant hostage shot when he was interfering with a bank robbery.
which is out of character for Batman a bit. Again, there has to be a sort of take into consideration of when this is in Bruce's timeline.
Yeah, I like the crew.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, the fact that it ends with four of them still alive and wanting to continue to do the work, I would have loved to have seen Johnson and Williams. They did a whole, I guess they'd already done by this point, sadly, they weren't after this, a series of backups in some of DC's secret files focused on the DEO, the Department of Extranormal Operations, and their agency. These would have been great characters to show up as supporting characters as members of the DEO who'd been recruited.
Or these guys could just open a security firm.
Pop up in Gotham
yeah.
as private security or PIs. I mean, heck, they would have been great characters to use as supporting cast if we ever got that Gordon and Bullock PI series. They hiring out their services as field agents for Gordon and Bullock PI.
Out of the 5 characters, the 2 that get the focus in the gang are the Green Beret and the psychiatrist profiler person.
Yeah, and the Green Beret mostly because he's the one who's going to wind up breaking. We didn't get a ton with them, but they were all sketched well enough that you had a feeling for their motivation. As they were introduced, Bruce kind of talking about why this one needs purpose. This one needs a sense of community. This one needs to feel like they still have something to give.
This one needs to write a book. Wants to write a book.
We had motivation, short of, well, Batman's paying me to do this, so I'm doing it.
And like the psychiatrist does lose an arm because in the end, stopping Mr. Freeze.
This is one of the it's not the only instance, but it is one of the instances where Freeze himself generates cold. It's not just that he has to be in the cold to survive. It's that he freezes anything he touches. So it's a slightly different take on Freeze's power set / handicap. That
I want to note, it takes us 5 issues to get Snow. Snow in the story called Snow, so...
Well, it was building to it.
It's a fun little tale, honestly.
Yeah. I don't think I would get an argument. I think this is story of the night.
What about you, Will?
Definitely. On the strength of the art alone, I'm just not sold on how all of these narratives work together, because it's especially clunky where we have to do the swap from we got to stop investigating this guy to go look at this Freeze character. Oh, it turns out these stories, these characters are connected. Oh, how convenient for us. It's clunky in spots.
Yeah, Freeze's and players turned it into a weapon to sell to Gangster, who was going to use it to be a big shot.
The one gangster in Gotham that Batman is obsessed with.
And a gangster who is himself not really a character.
No. He just has an afro. That's his character.
Your best gangster characters at least have a shtick or have something to make them memorable, and this guy is not.
He's fodder for Freeze.
Yeah, pretty much. It's he's there to have Batman get obsessed over, and then for Freeze to off when you need him out of the way because it's time for it to be a Mr. Freeze story entirely, and not just it's a Mr. Freeze story, not a Victor Freeze story anymore.
And I will give the comic this. It makes Mr. Freeze so sad. Like, he was a happy guy.
This is the most human Victor Freeze I think we've ever seen. The most well-adjusted Victor Freeze we've ever seen.
They were talking about having a child together, which spoilers, if you've read Absolute Universe, you don't want them to have a child together.
Generally speaking, in superhero comics, unless you're a Richards or a West, if you talk about having a child, something really terrible is going to happen. Well, actually, if you're a Richards or a West, something terrible is still going to happen, but those will come out happy. For everybody else, it really doesn't. Or the Kents. The Kents are fine. I think I'm good on this one now at this point.
I just gotta say, if Jim Gordon got angry about the crew, then how will he feel about Batman bringing a child soldier into war?
Yeah, okay, that would be a problem.
Jim is going to be very pouty about it.
Yeah.
Oh, that means it's time to Legends of the Dark Knight, number 192 to 196. Snow, but not that kind of snow on the big board.
Okay, here's a starting place. 347, Grimm. Another 5-issue Legends of the Dark Knight arc from only a couple years before this. The Mother Grimm, like, set at the beginning of Dick Grayson's tenure as Robin. Above or below?
Oh, definitely above.
Okay,
Again,
I
just,
agree.
just on the strength of the art.
Agree. Just wanted to. I was trying to set a baseline.
I'm trying to find a ceiling here. It's a good, solid ceiling. Secret of the Waiting Graves, 265.
Okay.
I feel probably above When in Rome. If this was just a Freeze story, if this was just, hey, here's an entirely new, take on the Freeze origin. That's all we're gonna do in these 5 issues. This might be top 100. Like just in terms of the freshness of this vision of Freeze, how it overall works. I think this detour into a crew, it brings both of the stories down. To me, this is it's peanut butter and caviar. They just do not work together.
So speaking of winter, we have winter and snow here. 281, Batman Annual Volume 3, Number 1. It's got the really good Ace story, this really good Scott Snyder, Ray Fawkes, Declan Shalvey story, and then a bunch of middling other shorts because it's an anthology. But the Ace and the Tom King Ace and the Scott Snyder Quiet Night in Gotham story are so strong that it keeps this in a decent spot.
So we want to say somewhere in the top half of the 280s then.
Yeah, I'm thinking. So where was When in Rome?
287.
Yeah, okay. So somewhere in between. I would put this above 284, Nightmare in Crimson, the Bronze Age monk story. So I'm thinking somewhere.
I think I would rather read this, and it's more of a Batman story than Underworld's Unleashed.
Yeah. So what do you think? New 282, right below that Batman annual, right above Underworld?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Now, if you want to read a J.H. Williams Legends of the Dark Knight arc, there is one in I think the 90s, like high 80s, low 90s of the series. It's Doug Mensch and J.H. Williams called Conspiracy that we haven't covered yet and is on my list of things to cover at some point because it's a J.H. Williams story and is pretty. But hey, that 282 is not, where the list is right now, that's a decent showing. We're really at a point where anything, you're above the halfway mark. That's a good sign. But hey, John, thank you for your support. Thank you for coming on the show. Always appreciated.
Yeah, I subscribe for many reasons, including the excellent Patreon content. Would you like to say what bonus episodes are for this month and next?
Yeah. Well, we just a few days ago dropped the July episode, which was Batman Begins to celebrate the 20th anniversary of that movie. Because
Yikes.
yeah, this month we're doing some DC animated universe content, all episodes themed around dreams and delusions. So we've got one episode of Batman the Animated Series, one episode of New Batman Adventures, and an episode of Justice League, and possibly some other wackiness that we're still in the process of discussing, but at least those. And I'm trying to remember. Oh, September next month will be Batman the Motion Picture, the 1960s Batman movie. And then October, you're going to have to wait, but October's going to be weird. October is gonna be weird.
Hell yeah.
Good times. But that does it for tonight. Next week, Patreon backer Sam Hopper joins us for the first time to talk about some stories featuring Damian Wayne.
There are some good ones.
Yeah, I think we've got some fun ones next week.
He did not choose violence.
No, he did not. Not in his first go around, at least. Remember, you can support the podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/batchat with Matt and Will, where you can get shout outs, bonus content, pick a story, and even come on the show. We'd like to thank those Patreon backers: Dan Grote, Josh Wheel, Mrs. Abigail Hartbaum, Asimov Fangirl, Tony Thornley,
Go Aggies.
Sam Hopper, John Wickham,
This fucking asshole right here.
Yeah.
Robert Secundus,
Bobby, $2. Let's talk for a second here, Bobbert. You continue to bring the worst takes of all time into my timeline, and I'm just going to ask: could you do so without also introducing the Oxford comma? I mean, just do me one small kindness, if you would, Bobby. I would appreciate it.
Tim Rooney, Giorgio Sirigioli, David Wheel,
World's greatest gray belt,
Alexander Wheel, Matt McThorne,
McThorny,
Dan Offer,
barely newer,
Nate Randell, Daniel Mosley, Ross Holmes,
Mr. Random Ass,
Will Crisp,
me compadre.
Carlos Cordova, Jordan Jennings, and Charlie Etheridge Nunn for their support. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music/Audible, YouTube Music, Podbean, and on comicsxf.com, where new episodes drop every Thursday. You can find me on Blue Sky, where I talk about comics and other random things, and Letterboxd, where I review all the movies I watch, both at MattLaz1013.
I am shambling on Twitter at Will Nevin. I need to go to bed, but I'm going to get off this here Zoom and finish a legendary run on Balatro. And then
Ooh.
I'm going to go to bed. Good night, Huntsville.
And be sure to visit ComicsXF at comicsxf.com or ComicsXF on Blue Sky for our weekly Friday Bat Chat roundup of new Bat books. For my other show, the ComicsXF Interview Podcast, where my longtime best friend Dan Grote and I interview comics creators, retailers, publishers, journalists, and other related tradespeople, as well as all the other stuff Will and I are writing. And stay safe out there, folks. Gotham is not a place to be after dark.